Okay. In our previous session, we have discussed security policy and how to select appropriate interface, how to configure the security policy in conjunction with routing. Now, one of the important reason why we use firewall is to perform UTM actions, to take some layer 7 actions. That is the main reason we deploy the next generation firewalls nowadays. So in today's session, we will discuss about these parts. So we have discussed till this section in our previous classes. So today we will discuss these security profiles and also this inspection mode, how these actions are done and what's the difference between these two. This is what we are going to discuss today. Now, if you pay some close attention here, in FortiGate firewalls, we get two modes of inspection. One is flow-based and another is proxy-based. So, what is the difference between the flow-based and proxy-based? Let me go back to the drawing board. So, in flow-based, let's say this is for flow. I'm sorry, my handwriting is really bad. So in flow-based, we have our FortiGate firewall sitting in between the client and the server. Now, whenever the client initiates a connection, firewall will inspect it on the fly and it will allow the connection. The same thing happens for SYNAC. And the axe. So the three-way handshake is not intercepted or nothing is modified in the three-way handshake by the FortiGate firewall. But in flow-based, FortiGate firewall can perform the inspection on the fly. It is not going to perform any decryption or anything. It simply inspects the traffic on the fly. Now, if we compare this to proxy, whenever the client machine initiates a TCP SYN connection, firewall will intercept this connection, and what the firewall will do is firewall will respond back to the client with a SYNAC packet. The client machine thinks that it's trying to it's communicating with an actual server or whatever destination it wants to communicate. But in fact, it's the FortiGate which is intercepting the connection and responding back with the SYNAC. And once the SYNAC is being sent, now the client will assume it's receiving a genuine response, and it will send back the ACK. Now the reason why the FortiGate is performing this is because FortiGate is in proxy mode, and in proxy mode, FortiGate will intercept and decrypt the connection. Now, in order to decrypt the connection, nowadays most of our connections are going through HTTPS. Now, in HTTPS, it is impossible for it's highly impossible for anyone sitting in between to decrypt a connection. So, for this reason, FortiGate will perform a man in the middle attack to intercept the connection and then to decrypt the traffic. How it will decrypt the traffic, we will discuss in our upcoming session, in the today's session, or maybe tomorrow's session, depending on how much topic we will be able to cover. Now, once the FortiGate intercepts the connection, once it completes all the entire three-way handshake with the client machine, once it understands like what's happening, then the FortiGate will initiate the actual TCP SYN with the server, because FortiGate can intercept connection, but it cannot serve whatever request the client has made. Let's say if the client is trying to reach abc.com, FortiGate can intercept the connection, but it cannot serve the web page for abc.com. So what the FortiGate will do is it will initiate another TCP three-way handshake with the actual server. And once the three-way handshake is completed, the server will respond back with the actual payload or the data. the same data will then be sent back to the client. So now the client will assume that it's receiving all the data from the genuine server, and it client will not suspect anything except for the certificate part, which we have to do some manual configuration on the client machine. Now, between if you remember the TCP timers, this and what by the time this ACK packet is being sent, the TCP session will move from 10-second period to the hold on timer for TCP will move from 5 seconds to 3600 seconds. So Firewall has ample enough time for the client to keep the connection open. The client is not going to close the connection in between this time. So Firewall will might take maybe 1 second or 500 milliseconds to complete the three-way handshake with the server and then respond back. But the connection will not get interrupted, or the users will not face any disconnect, because the hold down timer for the TCP will be moved from 10 seconds to 3600 seconds. Now, this is the general difference between flow mode and proxy mode. Now we will discuss the profiles which is available for us one by one. So depending on the flow and proxy mode selection, we will get various options to select in the policy. Let's say if my policy is set to flow based, then I will get antivirus, web DNS, so and so. And if I go to proxy mode, depending on the application features which we enable, we will get additional options. Now, why we need the proxy based mode? Because in proxy based mode, firewall will be able to perform certain additional functions. Some features like HTTP header insertion will not work in flow-based mode. So there are certain additional functionalities which is available only in proxy-based mode. So that we will discuss when we go through each one of these profiles individually. So let's talk about the first profile, that is antivirus. So let's consider this is our firewall, and we have our IPS engine running in the firewall. Now, what is IPS engine? IPS engine is the daemon that is responsible for all this traffic inspection in flow mode. So let's say we have our IPS engine running here, and then we have our antivirus engine, that is AB engine, running here. Let's say we have a client machine over here, and our server machine is here. Now, this is flow mode inspection, flow mode AV inspection. So by default, there are two scanning modes available in our flow mode, in our AV. That is legacy mode and the default scanning mode. So the only difference between these two are capabilities. So in default mode, the firewall can even scan a nested archive file without buffering. What do we mean by nested archive file is, let's say you have a zip file which is again zipped multiple times. So this is what we call as nested archive files. So even those files can be scanned by the firewall without buffering. This is the default mode. But in legacy mode, the complete file has to be locally stored on the firewall, decompressed, and then the firewall will scan. So this is the difference. And by default, the firewall is set in default mode. So we don't have to worry. And only in certain scenarios, we will go back to the legacy mode. That is again for performance features. If the device is having some performance impact, then we will move back. But typically in 90% of the scenarios, default mode will work. Now, what will happen? What will happen in the flow mode AV inspection? So let's say the client sends a connection. So let's go back. So let's say the client sends our TCP connection. So the first packet will be initiated from the client, which will be given to the server. Now, firewall is not going to intercept this connection. This is in flow mode, so firewall will allow this connection. Now, whenever the firewall, the server responds back with the SYNAC, this packet will be given to the client machine. Excuse my drawing here. Now, let's say whatever packets, let's say the three-way handshake is completed and now we are receiving all the data packets. All these packets will be given to the client machine. Now, if these packets are being continuously sent, then how the inspection is being done? So what will happen is when the packets are being sent to the client machine, firewall will make a copy of these packets, and the same packets will be sent to the AV engine for further inspection. Fine. Now, let's say now the server is sending some packets. These packets are being given to the client, and at the same time, firewall makes a copy of these packets, and those copies are given to antivirus engine for scanning. Now, let's say there is a malware being detected in these packets. Now, but since the firewall is in flow mode and all the packets were given to the client, it's in a way the malware has already been sent to the client. But how the firewall will stop this malware in flow mode? So this is where the last packet comes in. Let's say the last packet of the connection comes in. Firewall will intercept this connection, and this packet, now this last packet will be given to the AV engine. Now, if after inspecting all these packets, if the firewall determines that this packet or this connection is malicious, then the firewall will not send this last packet to the client machine. So if the last packet is not being sent to the client machine and instead firewall will send a reset packet, the client will not be able to reassemble these packets. Without reassembling these packets, sorry, without assembling these packets, the end machine, the client won't be able to understand the connection, and ultimately the malware will not be installed. Or if it's an executionable file, or if it's a file being downloaded, the file will not work in the client machine. That is how in flow mode the AV inspection will work. Now, along with this, now since the firewall has identified this connection as URL, what the firewall will do is it will catch this information, this URL and file information to its local database. And now, when the second time a same download is being performed, or second time if you're trying to access the same URL and accessing a similar file, now firewall don't have to wait for the entire connection to go through and receive the last packet to identify this is a malware. So firewall will identify that this is a malware connection from the very first packet by referring to the URL and by referring to the signature. So this is how the subsequent connections to the malicious domain will be blocked in flow mode AV inspection. So when it comes to configuration in firewall, we get two modes. So let's take a look at the profiles first. So under security profiles, antivirus, so you have these two profiles which are there by default. So we won't be able to edit much of the settings here, but we can clone it and use it. Now, this again, there are two places where you will select flow mode and proxy mode. One is in the policy and the another is the profile. You cannot mix these if mix these two things. If the policy is in proxy mode, then the profile which you attach will also be in proxy mode. If the if, Now, for example, this particular AV profile is set to flow mode. So this I can only be able to refer this only if the policy is in flow mode. So let's create one for proxy. So let's clone this. Let's set this to proxy. Now, the moment we set this to proxy, we get certain additional protocol functions. Now, let me explain all these options one by one. So the first option is what to do if there is an antivirus, what to do in the antivirus scan if we find something malicious. So either to block or monitor. If we set the action to block, then the user will get a block page, an intercept page from the FortiGate firewall saying so and so connection is blocked because it is malicious, or the page will say something like your network administrator has blocked this connection. Now, if we set this to monitor, the connection will be allowed and at the same time a log will be generated. Now, this will be useful in some cases, but it's better to go with block if the firewall is in production. Now, then the flow and proxy, depending on the policy mode, we will select whether to go with flow based or proxy based. Now, when it comes to inspected protocols, only if these Ganesh says the resolution is not clear. So anyone else facing the issue, or it's only for Ganesh? Okay, Ganesh, could you please check your connection? Maybe your internet speed is causing this. Thank you, guys. Okay. So let's say I'm creating a AV profile and all these protocols are disabled. Only HTTP is enabled. In this case, now what this profile is going to only inspect the HTTP protocol. It's not going to inspect any other protocol. Now, if you know that what services you have allowed in the security policy, then you can only allow those services. Let's say if the security policy is only to allow FTP and HTTP connections, then it's fine to have only these two protocols enabled. This way you are reducing the load on the firewall. Now a firewall don't have to go through all these signatures to load all these signatures and then check the connection. So in terms of firewall optimization, you know performance optimization, you can do this only enable whichever protocol or whichever traffic is going to pass through that particular policy. Now, if you have any mail traffic going through, then you can enable these protocols for inspection. And if we go to proxy mode, we get additional two protocols. That is MAPI. This is for certain API calls, Microsoft API calls or something, and then the SSH. So if you want to inspect again these two connections, then we have to go with proxy mode. Now, let's discuss the flow mode first, and then we will go to proxy. So in flow mode, then what to do with the APT protection options. So if there is any executionable file in the email attachment, what to do with that? So sorry, this option will treat any executionable file in our email attachment as virus. So this will only work if SMTP, POP3 or IMAP is enabled. So if there is any email executionable files in the attachment, those files will be treated as virus. And if you have sandbox, so Forti sandbox is a separate box or a VM which can inspect the attachments in a much more efficient way. Uh, how to explain this? So sandbox is a separate device. It can be a hardware or a VM. So where it presents a virtual environment for the virus. So it has a lot of VM machines which kind of mimic the actual network setup. So whatever attachment or whatever malware we receive in our file, this file will be sent to sandbox, and sandbox will allow this file to run free in the virtual environment, and the sandbox will observe what this particular malware is performing. Now if the malware is doing something, or if it's changing some registries, or if it's infecting the virtual host machines, then the Forti sandbox will take a decision whether this is a malware or this is a genuine file, or if it will kind of inspect the files in detail, and then it will send a verdict back to the FortiGate. Based on the verdict, the file will either be allowed or denied. Now, in which situation or in which scenario the sandbox is used? Let's say you have a public server that is being hosted in your network, or let's say, for an example, the income tax or the any banking sites. Let's say you are deploying a firewall in your banking site, and for certain reason, your customers have to upload their KYC documents to your server. So now you have provided this option for anyone in the internet who has an account with your bank to upload any file, any certain file formats to your server. So you cannot trust every file being uploaded by the customers. They can be malicious. They can have some hidden codes. So in those scenarios, what you will do, you will deploy a sandbox, and you will make the FortiGate firewall send those files to the sandbox, see if they are good, and only if those files are good, then allow the files to be sent to the actual server. So this is where the sandbox function will be useful. And then include mobile malware protection. Again, this is a licensed feature. Only if we have that license, we will be able to use this. And then the quarantine, if the quarantine functionality is enabled, then, and if any of the client is sending malicious traffic, then the client will be quarantined, and once the device is quarantined, it will be kind of applied to all the policies. None of the traffic from that particular machine will work unless you manually remove it out of quarantine. Now for virus outbreak prevention, so which database to use? So either what to do based on the database. So either to block or monitor, then to, if we have any external threat feeds or external malware list. So most of the enterprise will have this malware list being provided by certain third-party vendors. So if you have, or if you have your own specific feed provided by your NOC team or SOC team, you will use those lists here. And if you have EMS thread feed, then you will use that. Now, if we choose proxy-based inspection, we get certain additional options like content disarm and reconstruction. So what is content disarm and reconstruction is, if you're receiving an a zip file, and if the zip file is being compressed again and again. Now, using content disarm and reconstruction, firewall will be able to deconstruct the entire, dezip the entire uh, file and then inspect it. And then again, we have another option, send file to FortiNDR for inspection. FortiNDR is another device which is similar to Sandbox, but some different functionality. So whether to send the file to NDR or not, that decision can be made here. Now let's say this is our proxy-based inspection, not changing anything. Clone of default. Okay. Now since I have this, now this clone of default. Okay, let me rename this proxy. Now this proxy profile can be applied in our security policy for inspection. Now, let's take a quick look. Let's see. Let's configure this policy and see how firewall will block this connection. So I have this. Let me check the inspection mode on the profile. Okay. One moment. Okay, so now for demo purpose, we will go with a proxy base because I couldn't. The reason why we are going with proxy base is I couldn't find a HTTP site with some malware file to test this functionality. So let's go with proxy based. And also, since the website which we are going to access, the malware site is going to be a HTTPS website, I have enabled deep inspection. Now, we will discuss this deep inspection part later. But in short, since I have enabled deep inspection, firewall will be able to decrypt the connection. And at the same time, there is a certain configurations action which we have to do, which I will discuss by today's end of the session. So all set in terms of policy configuration. So basically, I'm allowing a connection from one of the Windows machine. So I have a Windows machine configured, and all connections towards the internet is allowed. And this is set to a proxy mode with NAT enabled. And then I have my antivirus profile, which is in proxy mode selected. So let's apply this connection and okay. So let me start the PC. So I have a Windows PC set for this connection. So start new session. Okay. So let's say google.com. So now this connection goes through the firewall. Now I wanted to show you something. This connection is secure. And if you see, this connection is verified by Fortinet, which means uh, normally if I do visit any website, or let's say let me do google.com from my PC. You see the certificate will come from Google. Let me show you the difference in terms of certificate as well. So this is the certificate which says the certificate is given for Google. But at the same time, if you check in the lab PC, the certificate is being given by Fortinet. So let's say more information and view certificates. If you check here, okay, there should be a better option to see this. This certificate is coming from Fortinet, and if you see, this is the serial number of your FortiGate firewall. Now, this is an indication that this connection from this PC is being intercepted by the FortiGate firewall. Now, let me show the lab topology once again to clear this out. So I have this Windows machine which is coming to port 1 of the firewall and then goes to internet on port 2. So this connection coming from this firewall, this PC is being intercepted by the firewall. And since we have deep inspection enabled, firewall has decrypted this traffic. And that is the reason why we see the firewall serial name in our certificate. Now, how the firewall does this? How can firewall intercept the SSL handshake, HTTPS a connection. That's a discussion for another day, but since we are running short of time, we won't be able to cover this now. But in short, what I wanted to show is firewall has decrypted this traffic. Now let's go to some malware website. Let's say this is an ecar test file. So let me try to access this ecar test file and let me download this. So that ecar test file is a malicious file which is used for testing. Again, there is nothing serious in that file. It's only for testing purpose. And once I download this malicious file, now my firewall has intercepted its connection and it has presented me with the block page. Now, in the block page, there are certain informations which will be present usually. So I will get some idea about the file name. So this is the file name. And then I will also get the URL. So from where I have accessed this and what is the quarantine status. So since the quarantine has been disabled in our configuration, now we say it's disabled. If it's enabled, the PC will not be able to access any other resources. So this PC will be put in the quarantine list and nothing will be accessed from this machine unless we manually fix the issue and rename it from. And then we also get the reference. Now, additionally, the username and group information will also be provided. You will also get the user details if the firewall is configured for authentication. Now, our lab is not set for authentication, so maybe in our full course, detailed course, I will set the lab for authentication and will show you that. Now, let's check the logs from the firewall perspective. Let's go back to the firewall and let's check the logs. Now, if you check the forward traffic log, you will see the connection going towards google.com and then all the other websites. But uh, we cannot say which one of that is malicious, not from the forward traffic. But if you go to your security event logs, now this is where you see that there is a malicious connection that is being sent to the IP address 89.239.73.97. And that connection is blocked because of the this particular file. So we have some good visibility in the log saying what connection it is and what kind of file and why it is blocked. So this information will be available in the security events, not the forward traffic. Now let's see what it shows for the forward traffic. So in terms of destination, so I filtered the destination. So in terms of the logs, what we see is the connection is allowed, and you will see this particular log file. Now this is a log from yesterday when I was doing the testing. Now the reason why you're not seeing this this particular piece of log in today's connection is because this session is not closed yet. So the firewall will mostly generate these logs once the session is closed. So this we have discussed already. So it's depending on the configuration which we have on the policy in terms of logging. So it's set to log all session, but log at session start is not enabled. So only once the session is closed, the logs will be enabled. The logs will be generated by the firewall. So once this session is closed, let's see. I don't remember the command top of my head. So we have an option to clear this session. Let me do this from here. Dashboard. I think the session got cleared already. Let's check. Okay, all active sessions has been cleared. So let's check the log now. I should see a UTM block over here. No, it's not generating. Let's check security events. Okay, security event is good. But ideally, you will see an UTM block log in our forward traffic also. It's taking some time. So in what I wanted to show is when you are investigating these kind of issues, instead of going to forward traffic, always go to security events and check the actual UTM blocks there. That's the better way. Now we have two modes. Now, which mode to use in which scenario? So that's another important question. So if my intention is performance, then I should go with flow mode, because when we go with flow mode, firewall can make use of CP9 or CP8, whichever hardware, whichever additional chip available in the model. Firewall can make use of that chip, and then it can perform the inspection in a much faster way. But if we wanted to use the additional functionality, then which is available only in proxy mode, then we should go with the proxy mode inspection. Now, the CP9 or CP8 will also be referred as N turbo. So in N turbo, the firewall can perform data matching by using signatures in a much faster way, because this acceleration is being performed by a special hardware available in the models. There's one more option which I wanted to show and discuss. I'm not sure if you have paid attention to this. So there's an option called protocol option. So what does this protocol option means? So let's take a look at this. So protocol option literally specifies which protocol traffic you want to inspect or investigate, and there will be certain some other functions for it. Now, this protocol option works in conjunction with all your antivirus profiles. Sorry, not only antivirus, all your UTM profiles. So let's say you are running a custom HTTP server, and it is running on port 8080. How do we instruct the firewall, or how do we make the firewall inspect the HTTP traffic coming on port 8080? So such options will be available under protocol options. Because by default, if you go with the default profile, and if you start using all your UTM functions, all these scanning, all these most of the IPS profiles are being applied on the well-known traffic, or the default port numbers. If we want to change that, then we should define the services here. So let's say if you have your own custom server running on port 8080, then you should define the service under the protocol option. Now, there are certain additional functions. First one is the log oversized file. So by default, the FortiGate firewall will inspect like 10 MB of file. So the reason being, whenever a file is being inspected, firewall have to maintain a local copy of the file in its memory. And for this reason, and if the number of files being inspected by the firewall is too high, then the firewall memory will run out. So for this reason, we usually limit this number to 10 MB, but we can change this. So if there is any oversized file, if we enable this log oversized file, there will be a separate log generated in our security under our security events, and this will be useful for you to monitor and determine the value. So where we will set the value, that comes here. So block oversized file or email. So once we enable this, the default threshold is set to 10 MB. Now, if we don't know how to select this number, let's say your network needs 20 MB or 30 MB, we don't know what is ideal for our network. To determine this value, what you can do is maybe for 1 week or 1 month, you can enable this log oversized file, and in the report, in the security event logs, you can see what size of file is normally being traversing your network, and then you can decide this value again. But if you choose to increase this value to 100 MB or 1 GB or whatever, now what will happen is the file will be stored locally on the firewall's RAM until the inspection is cleared. Now, if you are receiving a lot of files, your firewall will go to the firewall memory usage will go high, and the firewall will go to an event called conserve memory. So conserve mode will be triggered, and the firewall will get stuck. It will not process any new sessions. All the existing session will be processed, but new sessions will not be processed. So in those situations, the quick fix is rebooting the firewall. But again, you can also perform HA failover, or you can identify, investigate what is causing this high memory, and then you can disable those functionalities to bring down the memory usage. That's another topic for discussion. Now, RCP over HTTP, remote procedure call over HTTP. If you want to allow this, enable, or if you can block it, disable that function. And then the client comfort. So if you remember, in proxy mode, firewall kind of block the TCP connection or intercept the TCP connection, and it maintains two different connection. So in proxy mode, firewall, client, and server. So initial three-way handshake happens, and then the firewall will initiate its actual connection with the server. Now, if using this client comfort mode, we can define functionality like after how long firewall have to send the packets to keep the connection open. Let's say now the firewall has completed the three-way handshake with the client, and it's initiating with the server. Now at this point, let's say the server is under a DOS attack, or the server is very busy and it's not responding to my connections. It's not at all responding to my connections. I'm keep on sending the TCP SYN packets. I'm not receiving any SYNACT back. Now, what can we do? Now, firewall cannot present a fake website to the client machine. Firewall have to get a response back from the server. Now, how long the firewall will wait for the actual server to respond back? This time definition is being given in our client comfort option. So at an interval of 10 seconds, the firewall will send 1 byte of traffic. So this 1 byte of traffic will act as a keep alive packet for the TCP connection that is opened here. So because of this keep alive packet, the client will not close the connection. And when the server responds back, let's say the server responds back after like 5 minutes, firewall will keep on sending this SYN packet. Now, let's say once the firewall receives the response, now this actual packet will be sent to the client. So this is where the client comforting will comes in. There is another scenario where the client comfort will really help. Let's say firewall is now the connection is successful, and now we have received a file, and this file is being inspected by the firewall. Now, for some reason, maybe the firewall CPU and memory is high, or the file inspection is taking too long. Maybe this is a zip file, and this is compressed like 100 times. It takes time for the firewall to open the file and then do the inspection. Now, while this inspection is happening, firewall will send this client comfort keep alive packets to the client machine. So the client will kind of wait for the connection to come from firewall. Now, this is good from the security perspective because firewall will assemble the entire file and then inspect it. But from the performance standpoint, the client machine will experience the slowness. So if the client is downloading a file Now you will see the download speed is very slow. If you do a normal speed test from your browser, you will get good speed. But if you do a file download, the file download will be very slow. That is because your firewall has intercepted the connection and is performing an operation. You're only receiving the keep alive packets, the client comfort packets. You're not receiving the actual file, actual downloaded file. So for this reason, in the browser, you will see it takes a lot of time to complete the download. So this can be defined in our client comfort. So now let's say you have your own custom application, maybe some SAP application running, which is downloading certain files. Now, by default, the client comfort is set to 10-second interval. But what if the keep alive on your application, on your own application is designed for 3-second period? In that case, 10-second will not work. So I have to either reduce it to 1 second or 2 second, depending on my scenario. So this is where the application knowledge comes in. So if only if you know like what kind of application you want to be inspected and what on which port the application will traverse through, what protocol it will use. So only with those information you will be able to define these settings. So this chunked bypass, we will come back later. This is for web filter. And then for again in email, whether to allow fragmented messages or whether to append a signature. So if you enable this append signature and then you say maybe Fortinet DC or whatever location, whatever signature you want to do. Now this signature will be added to your SMTP. So this is useful. uh, this can be used in your SMTP server to take action based on this. I never used this functionality, but if someone is familiar with SMTP, will have some good idea on this. Now, we discussed, I said something about dezipping or unzipping the file, the zip file. Now, where will we define that? So that option is hidden in our CLI. So let's run show full and you will see that option. Okay, here it is. So set uncompressed oversized limit. So, and set uncompressed nest limit. So oversized limit says the size of the file. So which file you want to uncompress and till at how much nesting is allowed. So or how much time you can zip the same file. So by default, this option, now this number varies with platform. So for a higher end model, for a high performance firewall, you will go this number go till 60 or 100. But for models, firewall models with which has like 2 GB RAM or lower end models, you will see this number at a 6 or 12, depending on the memory available. Now you can change this, but you should also keep in mind changing this number will increase the memory usage depending on the traffic being inspected. So when you change that, please do keep that in mind. Now, in terms of logging, we have checked the forward traffic log, and then we have checked the security event logs. But there is one more place, dashboard and security. So now this will only be available only if we have FortiAnalyzer analyzer configured. So since we don't have FortiAnalyzer analyzer, we won't be able to use that function. But under security dashboard, you can enable all these options. So FortiView destination, let's see. So only if we have logs being sent to Forti Analyzer, which will be available under Security Fabric. Fabric connectors. Okay, only if the logging service is enabled, we will be able to use this dashboard. So basically, it will give you a SOC point of view, like what are the compromised hosts, what kind of malware you are getting in your network, and the quarantined devices, everything will be available under security dashboard. Now, in this lab, we don't have analyzer configured, so this functionality we won't be able to run now. Now, another thing, important thing to keep in mind is the version, the signature version which you are running in the machine. So under FortiGuard, so you will know like what license version you are running and whether you should upgrade depending on the availability and how frequent the updates will be. So updates are being fetched automatic. So you can also set a schedule and where to get the file from. So by end of today's session, I will show you how I will show you some additional settings about these configurations to see where to get these updates from. Now, let's come to the next option, that is web filter. Now, the second option, second UTM profile in our policy is web filter. So, what is web filter? So, basically, um, antivirus can or malware detection can identify a malware on a connection that is going through the firewall. But where is that connection being initiated from? In most of the cases, those connections towards these malware sites will be initiated by a user sitting in our LAN segment trying to access a website which is in the internet. So it's always better to prevent the website access rather than allowing the access to website and then taking action on the malware. So we should always prevent the users from reaching to those malicious websites in first place. So that is where the web filter comes in. So now what actions, what configuration we can do in a web filter, we will discuss today. So FortiGate will basically look into the HTTP GET request. Now, when I say HTTP GET request, please don't assume that it cannot inspect HTTPS traffic. So the reason why we keep on referring the traffic as HTTP is because once the traffic is decrypted, the traffic will always go back to HTTP, and decryption is controlled by the SSL inspection profile, which we selected. So I have selected deep inspection. So in short, firewall will decrypt. So any HTTPS traffic passing through the firewall will be treated as HTTP traffic because it's decrypted. Now, in the HTTP domain, in the HTTP, when we access any website, or even let's say this firewall access, there are two parts to it on this URL. So one is the host name and the domain. Now in this URL, 192.168.1.2 is my domain, and this is my URL. Firewall policy standard edit 2. This is my URL. So you can either block access to an entire domain, or you can allow access to domain and then you can block certain URL. So this is where the web filter comes in. So with web filter, either you can block access to the entire domain or you can block certain URL. So I just want to show you the difference between the domain and the URL. Now, how Firewall will does this, we will discuss today. I mean, how Firewall will take actions on this. So again, similar to antivirus, we have two modes here, proxy and flow mode. So if I create a web filter, so I get the option to choose either flow based or proxy based. So flow based is a default inspection mode, and this requires fewer processing resources. But proxy mode in proxy mode, we will get additional options. The in terms of security, both flow and proxy are very same. There is nothing. It's not like proxy will give you additional security and flow will not be able to detect all the malwares. In terms of detecting malwares or detecting the virus, it's all the same. But only certain functionality is available in proxy based mode. Now, what functionality is that we will again discuss now. So So in by default in flow-based mode, the inspection is done as the packet pass through. So original traffic what is not being altered. In terms of proxy mode, firewall will intercept the connection and firewall will perform an action what we call as TCP splicing. So firewall will it will in terms of math, if you want me to explain TCP splicing, it's a mathematical operation being done on the TCP sequence and acknowledgement. We all know that in TCP, if the sequence number and acknowledgement number are modified, then the reassembly will not happen, will not go well. The connection will be discarded. So to keep the TCP sequence and acknowledgement number intact, firewall will perform what is called TCP splicing. It will do a mathematical operation to decide on which TCP connect, which source port and which sequence number it has to use for the proxy connection. So in terms of flow mode, we are not doing anything in terms of modification. There is nothing being modified in the connection. Now, the advantage of flow mode is like the connection is the inspection can be done fast because we have N turbo or it's a special device, a special chip, CP9 chip coming in to assist in the inspection. Only if we want to use certain security functions of proxy, uh, so like usage quota, keyword search, only in those scenarios we will go back to proxy mode. Otherwise, we will stick to the flow mode. So we will discuss those features again. Now, before going into these categories and all the actions to be configured, I also wanted to show how firewall will detect a connection. So let's compare it from two places. One is not from this PC. Okay, so from this PC, let me access youtube.com. Now this is the Windows PC running in our lab. And let me also access YouTube from my local machine. Now we are doing this only to see a difference between certificates. Okay. So this is my connection coming from local PC and this is from the lab. View certificate. Okay. So general details, this certificate belongs to google.com. I mean, this belongs to google.com and I'm trying to access Google and it allowed me access. It has the trusted root chain with this GTS root R1, all good. But if you check my the certificate on the PC, let me minimize this. On the lab PC, you will see the firewall certificate because it is being decrypted. But in the original connection, you won't see the connection being decrypted. You will see the connection being coming from actual Google, and here from the firewall, the certificate coming from the firewall. Now there are two places on the certificate. Firewall can identify what website you are trying to get access. Okay, again, let me clarify this. Initially, when you try to access youtube.com, let's say your TCP three-way handshake, your three-way handshake will not have any information related to youtube.com except the IP which you're trying to access. Now, with IP address, firewall cannot determine that you're trying to access youtube.com. So what the firewall will do is firewall will wait for the client hello, that is your SSL handshake. So in your client hello, you have a field, and after in your client hello, you will specify what domain you are trying to access, and this will be specified in your SNI field. So this knows, from this firewall will be able to identify what you're trying to access, and then again your SSL handshake will happen, and then your NDI certificate will comes in. Now let's visualize this SNI and everything in our certificate. Now in version 3 of certificate, I think SNI will not be available. Okay, in version 3, SNI will not be available. So if the SNI is not available, then the firewall will look into the subject name to identify a common name to identify what website you are trying to access. Now, if we try to access youtube.com, but the website, the certificate, in the certificate, the subject name or the CN name says google.com. Now, if I want to block YouTube using web filter, and if I rely only on this information, google.com, or I mean the information coming from certificate, the YouTube access will be allowed. So this is where we need to understand how this web filter function works, and based on that, as administrators, we can block or prevent certain websites from being accessed. Now, if you encounter this situation, then you won't be able to block this website based on the SNI or the subject name. Now, if firewall wants to block YouTube in this category, uh, in this scenario, firewall have to decrypt the traffic so that firewall can actually look into the HTTP GET request in your HTTP header, and based on it, it can block. But that's not really necessary, because now we have FortiGuard providing a lot of information. So we know, firewall knows like that this domain, even though we are going to access YouTube, firewall knows like even though the certificate says Google, we are kind of accessing YouTube. From the domain, it will be from other informations, it will be able to identify this. Let's check this from the config perspective. Okay, so in web filter, let's say we have enabled flow based, and then we have an option to either disable or enable FortiGuard or category based filter. So uh, earlier, I was saying that firewall has other, even if the certificate gives us the different name, like certificate says Google, but you're trying to access YouTube, how firewall will identify that you are trying to access YouTube? That is by using FortiGuard category-based filter. So firewall can always query the FortiGuard to, and firewall can ask FortiGuard to help identify what category this belongs to. So what the firewall will do is firewall will send the initial connection to the FortiGuard, and FortiGuard will then check and will pass a verdict back to the firewall saying that this belongs to this category. So basically firewall will take the connection that is your client hello connection, the URL which you're trying to access, and that will be sent to FortiGuard on a separate connection, and FortiGuard will try to access the same destination. We'll see what response it gets. It will try to uh, validate it and provide a category for it and pass the verdict back to the firewall. Now, most of the well-known websites and their signatures are already being loaded in the firewall, so firewall don't have to query to the FortiGuard for well-known websites. Only if the firewall don't know like on which category it belongs to, in such scenario, you will see the firewall sending the query to FortiGuard. We will come back to these local categories later. So let's see what are the categories we have available in our firewall. Okay, so potentially liable, so drug use, hacking, explicit content. So based on all these categories, certain websites has their own default settings saying that warning or monitor or allow or block. So we need to know which, let's say as an administrator, you have certain URLs being used in your network. You should know which website belongs to which category. So how we can check this? So we can go to FortiGuard web filter lookup, and you can do a lookup over here, and you can find out which URL belongs to which category. So make sure to choose your FortiOS version, and then let's say you are running example.com. Let's see which category it belongs to. So this belongs to information technology. So if you want to allow access to this particular website, example.com, then on the firewall, you should allow IT. So information technology will come under, it will come under category group general interest business. So under general interest business, you will have information technology. So if you want to allow the access to this particular category or this example.com website, you can do it here. So again, from the FortiGuard web lookup, we will get to know everything like on which group it belongs to, general information about this. And if let's say you have your own domain or your company website is being categorized as something malicious. Let's say you have your company website. Let's say it's xyz.com is your company domain and it's being categorized as maybe hacking or explicit violence, and you want to change this category not only for you but for everyone. So maybe you are doing a genuine business, but by mistake your website got categorized under this categories. You can always request a review under this page. So you can submit a review, and the FortiGate or the FortiGuard team will get in touch with you over email, and then they will change the category after validating it. Now, let's say I want to allow all the websites from streaming media and download, or I want to block everything, but I want to allow certain websites. So how do we do that? One moment, guys. Okay, so let's say we want to block the entire streaming media and download, but I want to allow a particular website that belongs to this category. So how I can do this? So I can enable this static URL filter, and in static URL filter, I can create an exception. So I can say abc.com, and then I can either block, allow, or monitor depending on the action. Now we will discuss these actions again. One moment. Okay, perfect. Okay, now allow users to override blocked category. If we enable this, now you have to specify a certain group of people who can override this. So basically, if you enable this option, you are prompting the users for authentication, and if they authenticate, and if the authentication is successful, then they'll be able to override a category. Now, this option will be applicable only if you set the action as authenticate. Let's say for web analytics, we will change the category to authenticate. So to and define a user group here. Let's say SSO user group. So how to make this? So right click on this and then change the setting. So once you authenticate, then you will make them, if the authentication successful, they'll be able to access the certain category and whatever time frame you allowed. Now let's say you don't want to do this for each and every category. So in that case, what you can do is you can enable this option, allow users to override blocked category. So if any website that is that has the action blocked, only for action blocked, and the when the block page is presented, they get an option to enter their username, password, and then authenticate themselves. And once they authenticate, they'll be able to access. And then comes the search engine, a safe search functionality. So what is safe search? So safe search is something that is mostly used by schools or educational institutions where they don't want their users or childrens to search something, and they don't want to see any pictures that is not appropriate for them. So most of the time, the image search on the Google or Yahoo, they they can result in some content which is not appropriate for the students. So to prevent those things, we will be able to enable the safe search. So there is a list of keywords which firewall, if it detects on the connection, it will block it. And also firewall will look into the content, and if it's not appropriate, it will block it. And then we have YouTube access restrict. So in YouTube access, by strict and moderate, you are going with the category which is given by the YouTube for the actual video. If you guys remember, in the privacy settings of YouTube, we have strict and moderate. So this is taking action exactly based on that. It's not it's Firewall is simply reading the headers, and it's taking action based on the either it's strict or moderate. It's not doing anything fancy here. But again, we will come. There's another functionality on this YouTube access, so which we will discuss after some time. And then block invalid URLs. If any URL is not valid, uh, this can be blocked. This option should be enabled because this can be used as a mean to perform SQL injection. So this has to be enabled. Then URL filtering, then block malicious URLs discovered by sandbox. So if you have sandbox, you can use this. Then content filter. So in content filter, you can define a pattern, and then you can take action based on that. So if the website that you're trying to access as certain word or certain patterns, you can always use this function. And then the rating. So rating is where you will send the website to FortiGuard and you'll wait for a verdict from FortiGuard. So what will happen if a rating error request, that action will be controlled here. So for some reason, if the FortiGuard server is not reachable or if the FortiGuard server is not responding back, what to do with that? Either to allow or block. If you enable allow, then the connection will be allowed even though firewall is not able to take action. But if it's disabled, the connection will be blocked. So um, this can sometimes this setting can lead to outage, partial outage in your network, because if you have the if you want to get a verdict from for most of the websites, and if there is a connectivity issue or there is a particular option, let me show you that. Config system FortiGuard, and in this you will be setting the source IP and the interface. Let's say now the interface select method is set to auto. Let's say you specify interface and you select your WAN 1 and your WAN 1 is down. At that scenario, firewall won't be able to connect to FortiGuard. So at that time, all your web rating will be stopped and users won't be able to access those websites. So they will report, say, they will complain that they're not able to access website. So if you want to allow, keep this in mind that it will applicable for all the connections. Now rate URLs by domain and IP address. If you enable this again, not only by domain, there are certain crawlers available for FortiGuard. So that will rate certain blocks of IP addresses. Let's say a particular block of IP address connection coming from Russia that is malicious. For example, I'm saying this for example, or maybe a certain connection coming from some other country or certain IP block is malicious. So you can rate URLs by the domain and the IP address to which it resolved and take action based on that. And in terms of proxy, what to do, whether block or allow. So HTTP post action is something we will discuss later. So this is very useful in case of SASE applications where you can, let's say, let me give you a brief example. Let's say you are enabling, you have certain SASE, not SASE, some software applications are running in cloud, or let's say Microsoft, and you don't want everyone to access it. Only certain people can access it. So there will be certain IDs which you will get, context IDs, and you can configure the firewall to insert the context ID into your HTTP header and then allow action. Or another example, okay, this will be an appropriate example. So let's say you want to allow Gmail access to everyone in your network, but your users don't want to access their personal email during office hours. You only want them to access their office domain, not their personal email. So in that scenario, web filter will be very useful. So web filter can insert the HTTP header into your request going towards Google, and based on the header, Google will send a block page saying that you are not allowed to access your Gmail from this domain. Come out of this network and then access the Gmail. You will get such page. Such action can be taken based on the web filter. So let's discuss those. So these functionalities are mostly available in proxy. So let's see what kind of additional functionalities we get from proxy. So along with the same FortiGuard category, nothing new here. The same category. Now you get quota, category usage quota. So you can, in proxy mode, you can configure, let's say a certain category. Let's say, uh, let's say web analytics. So you wanted to allow users to access any website that falls under the web analytics only for, like, let's say 5 minutes. Or let's say you wanted to allow anyone to access. One moment. Let's say hacking, because most of the training websites or materials that provides good information about cybersecurity is categorized as hacking. Let's say you want to allow users to access this website maybe for 2 hours. Then you can configure this option, and this users will only be allowed to access this category for this 2 hour and 5 minute period. So this can be controlled only in proxy mode, and this is fine. Okay. Then YouTube keyword search. So whatever keywords you enter into your search engine, that can be logged. So if you want to enable this option, then you have to enable proxy. This has nothing to do with the safe search mode. Safe search can be used in flow mode also, but only thing is the deep inspection has to be set to SSL full deep inspection. But this can work in both flow and proxy mode. And the additional option which you get is um, whether to remove cookies, whether to remove certain HTTP headers, and restrict Google account usage to specific domain. This is what I was talking to. So let's say your company domain is networkgeeks.com. Let's say I configure this, and if you are in our network geeks domain, and if you try to access your Google account, your personal Google account access will not work, because Google will send a block page saying that only users from this domain, only accounts from this domain are allowed to access from the network. Change the network to access your personal email. So this can be achieved. That is all the options. Now the action part. So what are these actions are defined? So if we set the action to allow, then as the name implies, like, so all the connections will be allowed. And if we set it to monitor, if we set it to monitor, basically the connection will be allowed, and the log will be generated saying that user has access to this particular domain. So this will be useful to gauge our network. So if we don't know like whether to allow a certain category or deny it, we can set the action to monitor and then go through the logs and then see, then we can take action. It's not that you put it in monitor and you forget it. So you have to come back and either allow or block it later after reviewing the logs. And if the connection is set to block, all the websites in that particular category will be blocked. And in warning, the users will get a warning page, and here they can either be we can set a time, like only certain amount of time you are allowed to access it, such things. And in authenticate, if the users provide a valid authentication, they'll be allowed to access the website. Now there are two categories. There is local categories. So how do we configure this local categories is under web rating overrides. No, sorry, web profile overrides. I forgot where we will do this. Okay, custom categories, and then you can create your custom 1 and custom 2. Let's say geek.com, lookup rating. So this is under general internet. So networkgeek.com. We can put it in custom category. So by default, this website belongs to general interest or business, and you can override this to any category you want. So this is something which you're locally doing on. You can make it to a security risk, and then you can say it's a phishing or it's a malicious website, depending on your need. Or you can even move it to custom categories and then say custom one. And once you put it to custom one, come back to web filter profile, and now you have the custom one, and you can set the action to monitor or block whatever we want. So now the website networkgeek.com, even though the FortiGuard web filter, FortiGuard rating says it belongs to general interest. Now, because of the local action, now that website will be categorized as custom one. So there can be certain scenarios you don't want to use the static URL filter, and create the entries manually. So in those scenario, you can go back to, again, you can recategorize certain websites from the category based on the web rating overrides and web profiles. Okay. Now there are multiple places in which FortiGuard can take action. That is, it has a category based action to take. Then it has then if we enable static URLs, then we can again define actions. So how this URL filtering will work? How the URL filtering lookup will work? So let's go back to drawing board. Let's say we have a URL, and this URL is being sent for inspection to the firewall. So first it will check your static URL filtering. Now in static URL filtering, if the action is block, you will get your block page. So this block page again can be customized. You can have your own organization's logo and everything. So you will get a block page. Now if the action is exempt, there is an action called exempt. I will show you in firewall. If the action is exempt, then this particular URL is not being sent to any other URL based filtering, and directly it's allowed. Now let's say in the static URL filter, if the action is allow. Now in this case, this URL will again be checked with FortiGuard category filter. So this category filter is something which we have seen. So again, it will check in the category filter, and if the action is block, then you will get the block page. Now, again, in this FortiGuard advanced filter, category filter, now if the action is allowed, then the same URL will again be sent to advanced filters. And in advanced filters, if the action is block, we will provide block page. Only if in the advanced filter it is allowed, then the user will be allowed to access the website. Display URL. So if you want to take any action, it's not that if you allow the connection in static URL, you will be able to display the page. No, if the website is, if you have made an entry in static URL and then you set the action to FortiGuard web category filters, and if the category is set to block, still the website will be blocked. So this flow of event is crucial to configure this. Let me show this in the firewall now. So let's say I create a filter, say youtube.com, and if I set the action to exempt, it's not going to be inspected anymore. If I set to block, fine, will provide the block page. But if I set to allow, then the same URL will be again checked in the category. So in category, this will come under, not sure, search engine or some video. Let's check. A filter lookup. So youtube.com comes under. So it comes under streaming media and download. So even if I have the action set to allow, it will again search streaming media. So it comes under group bandwidth consuming. Okay, so streaming media and download. So if again if the action on static URL is being set to allow, and if the action is allow here, then the website is allowed. But if I set this to block here, then again the URL will be blocked, even though I manually have an entry which says youtube.com should be allowed. So if I want to allow this, then this action has to be exempt here. Even if we set to monitor, it's the same action. Monitor is nothing, but it only generates a log, but the website will be allowed. So if a monitor action is being sent, then the category should also be either allowed for the websites to be accessed. So if we don't want this, then we can create a web filter, web rating override, and put it in a custom category and then allow the action there. So please keep this in mind when you do the configuration here. Now we have discussed, now in this chart, we have discussed static and FortiGuard filters. Now what are the advanced filters? So advanced filter is nothing but your safe engine, safe search. So only if this check is also passed, then the website will be allowed to access. So this is the flow of your web filtering in FortiGate. Now, in terms of troubleshooting, one of the important common issue is this web rating. So what is web rating? So web rating is nothing but you are sending a request to FortiGuard and waiting for FortiGuard to provide a verdict. So in firewall, you have an option how to check if firewall is connected to FortiGuard. So if you run the command diagnose debug rating, and if this will be only visible if you are using at least one UTM profile in your policy. If no UTM profiles are used, then all of these services will be disabled and firewall will never connect to these FortiGuard servers. So you have to enable one of the features. So right now we have web filter enabled. So because of this, now firewall is connected with one of the server. Now, in this, we have important things to keep in mind. So wait is nothing but value given to a remote server. So FortiGuard can connect to many servers. There are many servers around the globe. and we want the firewall to connect to one of the best servers available. Pavan, you want me to explain the static URL filtering? I will come back to that, Pavan. So there are many global servers available, and you want your firewall to connect to the server with with least distance or least latency. So that value will be determined by the weight. So every firewall has a weight allocated. So this is again based on some internal calculation. So based on the round trip time and everything and the protocol, this weight will be allocated. So if you have multiple servers listed, and the server with least weight will be always preferred. Now, in terms of flag, if the flag D says it's the DNS has been resolved to the particular IP, and the flag I says the contract server has been connected. So only if the flag D and I are present, then you will say, okay, the firewall is successfully able to connect with this server. Now, okay, this time has overlapped here. So this is the IP address and this is the time. And there are other flags which you will see, for example, F for failed and T for timed out. So if you see those flags, then it means that firewall is not able to connect to that particular server. And then the time zone by default is in GMT 0. So that's what we see here. And number of FortiGuard requests sent and the number of requests that is lost. So all this information we have available here. Now, this particular connection is running on HTTPS on 443 and Anycast has been enabled. So let's change this and let's see what other options we have. System FortiGuard, and let's say you want to override FortiGuard servers. Okay, so first from CLI we have to disable Anycast. So config system FortiGuard. So where is Anycast is option? One moment. Okay, set protocol HTTPS. Let's change this. So set protocol. We have we should get UDP also. So there is some other option we need to change first. Okay, FortiGuard Anycast. Let's disable this. Set FortiGuard Anycast disable, and now we will get other protocols. Set protocol UDP. Okay, UD call port is set to 8888. Okay, now let's check this page once again. You should see some other ports here. Okay. So now the connection has been changed to UDP and port 8888. So let's run this command once again. So you see all these list of servers. Now, okay, sorry. Now, in all these servers, everything will not be connected. So you have all these servers available, but you see only one of the server is connected. So connection is only made to this one server, which has the flag DI. And for this server is being returned by the DNS lookup. So you try to resolve and this also been returned. And you see the weight. So some of them have 0 and some of them have 30. So 0 is something that is considered idle. So we connected with this particular server. And they are all in different time zones. So this is in -8, -5 now. There is an order, there is a list of what this code belongs to which but it'll be in some form of KB. So that's what it is. And number of requests sent and number of requests lost, everything will be provided here. And we find the team service. So if for some reason you have an upstream for a firewall blocking your FortiGuard connection, or if you, or maybe your ISP provider will not allow this connection on port 8888. Maybe they will not allow this UDP connection. So your FortiGuard, all connections to your FortiGuard will fail. And then you will get a log saying that all firewall is not able to do a rating for this website. So in such scenario, so you can enable this option. So let me repeat this. So let's say you have set your connection to UDP 8888 and your ISP is not allowing this connection. So in that scenario, firewall won't be able to connect with any of these FortiGuard servers. So firewall cannot send any website for rating. So at that time, all the websites, the user will get a block page that's saying rating error occurred, cannot access the website. So users will report that they're not able to access certain websites and it's a partial outage for you. But so what you can do is you can either enable this option, which allows website when rating error occurs, or you can investigate why firewall is not able to connect to FortiGuard, and then you can disable this option. The reason being, sometimes malicious websites can also get allowed if you enable this option. So we need to be very careful with this. So Pavan wants me to explain the static URL filtering once again. So Pavan, let me go back to the action. So let's say user is trying to access a website and now you wanted to do a URL filtering on it. So first, if you have configured static URL filter in the firewall will check the static URL filter. So if the static URL filter says block, then the website will be blocked directly. User will get a block page. If it has an action set to exempt, it won't be, the particular URL will not be inspected any further. The connection will be allowed and user will be able to access the website. Now, if it's set to monitor, the firewall will allow the connection, but it will also generate a log. If it's set to allow, the same URL will be inspected once again using FortiGuard category filter. Now in category, if it's allowed, the connection will be allowed. If it's blocked, again, we are blocking the connection. Now, if it's allowed, and then it will go to advanced filter. In advanced filter, you will see whether the safe search functionality is enabled, to whatever keyword you're searching is appropriate. And only if that again gives the verdict as allow, then you will be allowed to access the website. If it's if it's blocked, you will get a block page. Now, let's say firewall receives the URL and it don't know what category it belongs to. It sends the URL to FortiGuard to get back and provide us a verdict on it. So this is where the rating error will happen. So if FortiGuard doesn't know what category it belongs to, it will try to communicate with our FortiGuard servers. And if at that time, if the connection is not working, then you will again get a block page which says rating error. So you have to either fix the rating error issue by troubleshooting the connection, or you have to enable this option. Pavan, did I answer your question or you have any other follow-up questions? Okay, great, Pavan. Thank you. Okay, now there is one more important profile which I wanted to show, that is SSL SSH inspection. So when I was configuring the policy directly, when they had configured a deep inspection. So basically what these different inspection profile means. So this is, we should understand this, and then you'll be able to manage the firewall in a better way. So I wanted to clarify one more thing. A lot of people will confuse these two things. So you will confuse the flow base and proxy base with the SSL inspection. This confusion is coming because there are certain other vendors in the market. Um, they will do this. They will employ these techniques in a different way. So that is why this confusion happens. Flow based or proxy based is nothing but what method of inspection you're choosing in the firewall. So let me show you. So these are various daemons that is running in the firewall. Now there are two important daemons when it comes to FortiGate. That is, one is IPS helper or IPS engine, and then the WAD. So basically, IPS engine or IPS helper, they are responsible for flow mode inspection. But even IPS cannot do all the inspection. Some of the functionalities will be given to WAD. WAD is another daemon that's responsible for anything related to proxy. So let it be proxy inspection, let it be explicit proxy, deep inspection, decryption, anything related to proxy, those functionalities will be handled by WAD. In fact, WAD has around like 50, more than 53 functions being added. Uh, diagnose application, test application, WAD, -1, diagnose, test. One moment, there is an option to enable category. Let me show you that also. So you have all these functions, all these functions being done by WAD. So anything related to these things, if it's being done in proxy, they will all be done by the WAD daemon. So whether it can be web caching, byte caching, policy matching, auth. So these are the most two important daemons that is running in the firewall. So just by choosing whether to go with flow based or proxy based, you are only instructing the firewall how to do the inspection, because certain hardware models, they have CP9 chips or CP7 or CP8. So these hardware chips are special purpose accelerator chips. They are going to help the firewall in performing a much faster processing when it comes to layer 7 inspection. If you choose proxy based, most of the traffic will be handled by CPU. If you choose flow based, most of the connections will be handled by special purpose hardware. But again, please don't confuse this with offload. This has nothing to do with offloading. Offloading is a different concept. This inspection mode is only for layer 7 inspection. This has nothing to do with the offload. On the other hand, SSL inspection is something that will say whether to decrypt the connection or not to decrypt the connection. Why we need to decrypt the connection? Because certain function, even though the firewall is in flow-based mode, you can still apply the URL filtering. Even as we shown in the profile, you can create a URL filtering profile in the flow mode as well. And even in the flow mode, you can configure static URL filtering. Now in static URL filtering, you can specify a filter saying youtube.com/videos. Now, without decryption, firewall can read the youtube.com path from the certificate, but firewall cannot read the HTTP header to identify that you're trying to access a video. Or let's say Vijay Sidhu vlogs. Firewall cannot identify that you are trying to reach this particular channel in YouTube. Firewall will only be able to identify that you're trying to access YouTube from the domain name, and this domain name can be fetched from your SNI or from the subject name in your certificate. For this reason, you should enable in the policy, if you want to take these kind of actions, that you wanted to look into the actual URL and then take action, then in the firewall policy, you have to enable under SSL inspection profile, you should enable decryption. I hope this difference is very clear, because most of the time people will get confused, or people will believe that if the firewall is in proxy based mode, it can perform the decryption and it will be able to take action. But if you put this in proxy based mode, and then if you say you wanted to do no inspection, or let's say certificate inspection here, and in web filter, if you configure if you want to filter any YouTube channels, or if you filter any particular website where don't want to allow access to policy standard, or if you don't want to you want to allow Facebook but you don't want to allow Facebook chat, such kind of actions based on the URL cannot be performed. So that is why we should have a clear understanding on the SSL or SSH inspection profiles. Now, when you try to create a profile, um, you have to choose whether you want to protect, or how you want to deploy this. Multiple client connecting to multiple server, or protecting SSL servers. So in other vendors, this option is different. So this, let me show you the difference between these two. So the first one is multiple clients connecting to different server, and the second one is let me go back, protecting SSL server. So in which scenario you will choose what kind of inspection? So let's say you have a firewall and you have a client machine. Now, if your client is trying to access a public server, or multiple clients trying to access multiple client servers, in this scenario, you want the firewall to intercept this connection and then perform a man in the middle. So for these actions, you will use multiple client connection to different server. Let's say you have an internal server and you have a user coming from internet coming to firewall, and they're trying to access this server. So in this scenario, you can configure the firewall to uh, perform the SSL handshake. Firewall will perform the SSL handshake with the actual end machine or the user coming from internet, and then firewall will proxy the connection to your actual server. So in a way, you are not exposing your actual server to the internet. Your SSL connections for the servers will all end in the firewall, and your connection between firewall and the actual server will be in plain text, or these are in HTTP. So these are the two scenarios where you will choose this profile. So we have to choose correct profiles for correct deployment. So when you choose a protect SSL server, there will be this is where you will configure the private key of your server in the firewall. So this server will have a public key and private key. So you will take this private key and you will configure this in the server, in the firewall. So now using this private key, firewall can decrypt this connection. So this is what's happening. So when I see your question, I will come back to that. Let me finish this. So if you choose multiple clients, this is the most common used, because in most scenarios, you want your internal users to be protected, or you want to take action on what websites they do. They try to access. So here you can get the option whether to use SSL certificate inspection or full inspection. If you do certificate inspection, firewall will not decrypt the connection, but it will look into the certificate part. This is where the firewall will kind of check what certificate you are trying to access, and from the certificate details, it will try to validate. It will check what domain you are trying to access. But if you choose full SSL inspection, now firewall will kind of act as a man in the middle. So what happens is, let me again do that. So if we select full inspection, so the client will send the client hello. Firewall will respond back with this certificate. So let me show you that certificate. So firewall will respond with Fortinet CA SSL. So this certificate is by default not trusted by your client machine. If you check your trusted root CA list in your PC, let me show you that. Okay. Wait, no. Manage user certificate. Okay. So by default, if we check the trusted root CA store, these are all the well-known CAs available in the PC. In this, we will not find the Fortinet certificate because if you see when the client hello is being received, firewall will respond back with its own CA certificate, and this CA is not being trusted by the PC. So for this reason, firewall, the PC will show you this warning page. This is the reason why you get this not secure page when you try to access your connection is not secure. This is because you're not trusting the CA certificate. Now, to avoid this, what we can do is we can install this certificate in the user PC. So I have done this in this firewall in this PC. So this is the firewall serial number, and I have installed this firewall certificate in my PC. Because of this reason, I'm able to access google.com. My connection is decrypted by Fortinet, but I'm not getting this not secure warning message because my certificate has been installed. Now, instead of using the firewall's default certificate, you can also create your own certificate. Let's say you have your own CA server, or you are using your own domains. You have list of certificates which is being signed by a well-known CA. In that case, you can generate a CSR from the firewall, and then you can sign the CSR with a well-known CA, import the certificate back to the firewall, and then use it for inspection here. So this way, if you sign your CSR with a well-known CA, then you don't have to go through the process of installing this certificate onto all the machines in your network. Instead, what you can do is if you're not signing, you can push this certificate to all the PCs by using your domain server using global policies, remote global policy push. You can push the certificate to all the PCs. Now, if full SSL inspection is enabled, then firewall can decrypt the connection. Now, what to do if you are trying to access a website and the certificate of that website is blocked? Now, the certificate can be blocked for various reasons. The root CA, they will monitor all the well-known CAs. They will monitor all the certificates which they are signing, and they will take certain actions. For example, this Metasploit, a command and control server. So this particular certificate, a certificate with this particular signature and this particular common name is being used for Metasploit command and control. So for this purpose, this particular certificate is blocked. So firewall will get all these blocked certificate list again from the FortiGuard, and if it sees any of these connections, so most of them are command and control connections for attackers. So if you see any of these certificates in the connection, what to do, whether to allow or block. So that action can be taken here. By default, it's blocked. And then what happens if I receive an untrusted SSL certificate? So there are certain trusted root CAs. So these are the list of CAs the firewall is trusting, well-known CAs. Now let's say you maintain your own CA as a organization and as an administrator. You have your own trusted root CA, but that CA is not available in the firewall. So what to do in that scenario? So either you can block, ignore, or you can import that list. I think you have an option to import your CA into the firewall. So that is also possible. And how to do this SNI check. So SNI is a server name indicator, and that can be checked. So if you enable, if it's enabled, firewall will look for the SNI. One moment. Sorry, we are running out the time here. Have we finished this? This is my last topic. Okay, so if we enable SNI check, then what the firewall will do is it will compare the whatever SNI we are receiving in the certificate to the actual domain you are trying to reach. So if we want to perform this check, then we can enable this. Now, if we don't want, okay, disable. But if we set the option to strict, only if those two domain matches, it will be allowed. For example, in case of YouTube, the SNI is fine, but if it's a version 3 certificate and if the SNI is not present, in that cases, if for example, if in a certificate there is no SNI and there is only a common name, and if the common name is not matching with your website you're trying to reach, the URL you're trying to reach, and if the action is set to strict, firewall will block that connection. So again, all the logs for this will be generated in our security event, so you can always check and take action accordingly. And SSL cipher compliance you can enable. So this SSL cipher compliance again goes back to the global setting. Or so if you in the firewall, if weak ciphers are disabled, then and if you have any SSL weak ciphers, they will be the connection will not be allowed. Negotiation compliance will also be, if you enable negotiation compliance and if you disable weak ciphers in your firewall, and if your client PC is trying to negotiate on one of those weak ciphers, firewall will remove that particular capability from the connection when it's being forwarded to the actual server. And then comes the port. So whether to inspect all port or whether to inspect a specific port. Maybe you are running your own application and that is running on maybe 4443. This is maybe you're running in a custom port, or 4433, whatever port you want, you're running the services on. If you want to inspect those particular ports, then you have to specify this here. Only then the policy decoder will come in. So policy decoder is nothing but a set of rules, or it's a protocol decoder which reads the header. And if the connection is, if the port numbers are not properly specified, the policy decoder will not kick in to perform the inspection. And then whether to allow HTTP3, whether to inspect or block, and DNS over quick. Quick is an application which can bypass most of the firewall inspection. So whether to allow quick or not, that action DNS over quick can be allowed or blocked. And by default, there are these categories which are not decrypted. Firewall will not decrypt these categories. So you can add an exception here. Maybe you can add a particular category which you don't want the firewall to perform decryption, or a specific address which you don't want to decrypt. Maybe gmail.com. If you don't want to decrypt, you can add it here. Now we should be very careful on what domain we add here, because if you add a domain here, then you won't be able to make use of all the web filter functionalities available for that particular domain. So be very careful like what you're adding here. And log exceptional exception, if any of the firewall belongs, sorry, any of the URL which is being matched in this category, and if they are being not decrypted for some reason, you need a log to be generated. So for that reason, we can enable this. And similar to SSL, you can also decrypt your SSH. So that can be controlled here. If you want to do it on any port or specific port, you can do that. And then what action to take on the certificate. If it's an invalid certificate, whether to block, allow, or custom action. And if you block, okay, everything is blocked. Allow, everything is allowed. If you set to custom, what to do with that? So expired certificate, keep untrust and allow, or block or trust and allow. If it's a revoked certificate, what to do? And if it's a timed out validation timed out certificate, sometimes you will try to check the certificate with the every certificate will have the CRL list on which URL you need to try to reach to get the CRL. Not from here. Let me show you that. So for example, this certificate, CRL distribution point. So in order to validate this certificate, I should be reaching this website to check whether this particular URL is in the allow list or block. I mean, this particular certificate is valid or not. Keep. So in the revocation list, we will get all the signatures, whether it is allowed or denied. So this information, what to do if we get such, what action to take in such scenario, that can be defined here. And validation failed certificate, again, if you're not able to validate the trusted root chain, for every certificate, there's a trusted root chain. For example, for this server certificate, google.com, it's being trusted by WR2, and WR2 is trusted by GTS root R1. In my PC, in my trusted root store, I might have GTS root R1, but I won't have WR2. So this WR2 will be passed on by the server during the negotiation. But when we receive the certificate based on these public key and the public key along with the there's one more value along with the issuer information, we will try to form the root chain. So if the root chain is not valid, what action to take, whether to block or whether to allow. So these actions can be defined in our profile. Yeah, so based on our requirement, we should choose all these options. And that's all from my end. Now let's use some time for question and answer session. So let me stop the recording.